Gonna do a little bit of a double upload tonight. First, I'll do the news of the week, which I decided to push a day earlier because if I was going to wait till tomorrow, I probably will not be able to fit everything on the board. Plus, the fact that these next two evening I am going to be relatively busy. And then after that, I will be doing the rankings in terms of the top 10 worst team in MLS this decade. That's part of me kind of doing these top 10 ranking as the decade is closing. And I think next week I'll do the top 10 best team in the decade before I will do a ranking of my 5 most favorite team and the 5 team that I hate the most in the league, which is right near the end of the year. But first of all, in terms of the news of the week, and obviously the biggest news of today is that Charlotte officially become the 30th MLS team. And I was originally going to do a video about this, a single video that is about Charlotte coming into the league, but because I have to do kind of this double upload, I didn't want to basically do a single video about this. Then basically puts like free video that I have to upload, which is definitely a bit of a stretch in terms of me uploading that many video in a single day. But as I said, it was announced that Charlotte become the 30th MLS team, which is kind of a little bit strange because they announced that they were the 30th MLS team, even though technically they are supposed to be the 28th MLS team because they entered the league in 2021, and that's a year before when the 28th and the 29th team in MLS, that is St. Louis and Sacramento, is coming into the league. And to only get 14 months to basically start from scratch and build up an MLS team is definitely a very short spell of period. So, I think Charlotte should be thinking about how to structure this team and basically build up the front office very soon. I already heard that they were thinking about hiring some special operation people into the team as soon as next week. So yeah, welcome Charlotte to MLS, and it's going to be interesting to see how they of course will do. By the way, for those of you wondering how much did Charlotte actually pay to get into the league, because there's been a lot of discussion about teams that has to, well, not teams, but owners that have to pay a heavy amount of money to go into MLS as part of the expansion fee. Well, Charlotte actually pay around $325 million, and it's actually the Carolina Panthers owner, David Tippett, actually paid that amount of money, and I believe that's the highest amount of expansion fee a expansion team have to pay to get into MLS. And this is definitely not a big surprise, considering I think in the upcoming years when we're going to get more expansion team, the fee is definitely going to get higher and higher as we go. And these other teams that want to go to MLS, well, they need to basically have to try to invest a lot to come to MLS, because the expansion fee is definitely going to be much higher than they were thinking about paying a couple of years ago. Now, speaking of teams that I think could come to MLS in the future, well, it seemed like Darren Gabbert during the meeting says that he thinks MLS is likely done with expansion. And notice I put likely in quotation mark because, let's face it, MLS is not going to stop expanding. Like, at least I think until MLS get to probably around 40 teams, that is when I think most likely they're going to stop expanding. I won't be surprised next year or even in the upcoming weeks, Darren Gabbert just say, you know how I said MLS is likely to be done with expansion during the time when I announced Charlotte was coming to MLS? Yeah, that was just a bunch of baloney, and what I really mean is that we're going to have 32 teams coming into the league in the next couple of years. And as we get more teams in the league, there's definitely a lot of discussion of how the league is going to work, and that a lot of people said that eventually the league is going to break up into 4 divisions, and that you're going to kind of see something similar to what the NFL, MLB, and NHL does with like 4 different division. Well, actually the MLB has 3 division, and I believe the NHL has 4 division, while the NFL, I think they have 8 division, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. But yeah, there's definitely discussion of whether or not if the league is going to be split into different division, and there's even a bigger discussion of whether or not if promotion and relegation is going to be introduced, which, if you want to give my opinions on whether or not if promotion and relegation should be introduced in MLS, I think eventually it will, but it definitely will not be the case in the next 10 years. I mean, I know a lot of people have been saying that, but there are really strong argument of why pro and rel does not work in MLS, and I think this league needs to continue to grow and continue to kind of get a little bit mature before we can maybe think about the promotion and relegation system, and especially how the structure of US soccer is just a mess right now. Like, there's been just so many lawsuits that has gone on with the US soccer structure that promotion and relegation right now, I don't think that's the best idea. Maybe when things figure it out in terms of how the structure is, then maybe that, of course, will be the case when there's going to be promotion and relegation in MLS and the lower league. The Portland Timbers officially announced that they have resigned Diego Valeri on a 10 contract, and I think this was kind of obvious that it was going to happen. I mean, a couple of weeks ago, I think the Timbers kind of teased their fans that eventually they're going to get Diego Valeri on a TAM contract, because now we have 2 DP slot open, and that really only means that probably one of that DP slot that the Timbers no longer have is basically one of the DP slot that the Timbers have is no longer occupied by Diego Valeri. So it's great news, the fact that Valeri is coming back for the Timbers, and I really hope he retire as a Timbers. I mean, he is just an absolute legend, not only to MLS, but just to the Timbers fan base, and I just have a feeling he is going to be there throughout his career, and he's going to just retire as a Portland Timbers. And I won't be surprised in the future, outside of Providence Park, I'm going to see a Diego Valeri statue, because that's how much he meant for this club. Elena United have signed Lennon on a multi-year contract. Now, this is one of the rare time where I see a club just acquire a player and then they basically decided to sign them a multi-year contract after a couple weeks they acquired them, which kind of shows you that they really believe in Lennon. And it also makes me wonder, with Elena continued to kind of hand out contract extension to most of their player, one player that they still have not been reached contract extension, and a player that's been kind of not happy with the fact that he hasn't able to receive his contract extension from his team, is Julian Gresso. And you just wonder, with this multi-year contract that Lennon received, does that also kind of now means that Julian Gresso potentially is going to leave Atlanta United? I mean, when this move happened, I already kind of feel like he maybe potentially could be leaving. I mean, maybe that it will create a little bit of competition and see how it goes. But now, since it seemed like Atlanta are thinking of signing Lennon on a multi-year contract, this basically kind of shows me that, it's not really just about a competition that both of these guys are going to fight for that spot, but it's more if Julian Gresso decided to kind of they might think about moving him in the future, and that if Lennon is a better suit than Julian Gresso, then that of course is the case. But we'll see how that is gonna go. Pity Martinez is rumored to head to Gaimero, and I believe this is the second time that he's been rumored to head to this club. And I'm gonna say the same thing about Pity Martinez and this rumor to what I said about Ezequiel Barco and his rumor of potentially going to Europe. It's probably not going to happen. And the reason why it's not going to happen is I think Elena is going to try to hold on to these players for another year. And especially Pity Martinez, who I know he had a bad year last season and he didn't live up to the record transfer fee that Elena paid him last off-season. But I have a feeling he could potentially do something that Ezequiel Barco suffered in the first year, where he had a bad first season at Atlanta United, and in the second season he kind of accelerated. And that, I would say at minimum, probably Atlanta is not going to sell Pity Martinez until the end of next season. I mean, unless if a club decided to pay like 40 or 50 million to try to get Pity Martinez, I doubt Atlanta United is going to just sell to these players, because after all, even though Atlanta United is known to be a team that want to bring some talented young South American player and sell them off of a profit, they usually don't sell them until they develop them and that they get the right price to sell them, and that's when they basically pull the trigger and able to try to invest on those South American players that they develop and get the profit out of that. RSL acquire MLS goalkeeper Zach McMath from Vancouver Whitecaps in exchange for 50,000 target allocation money. Obviously, with the retirement of Nick Rimando, RSL they are kind of a little bit short on the goalkeeping position, although they do have a very talented goalkeeper in their rank in Ochoa, and I thought maybe he could potentially take over that spot that Nick Rimando is currently in, but I guess RSL thinks that he isn't ready yet. I mean, he was spectacular when he was with Rio Monarchs in the USL, but apparently it seemed like they want to go with a bit of an experienced goalkeeper, and Zach McMath is one of those experienced goalkeeper that, you know, last season he definitely did not have his best year at the Whitecaps, and that he kind of lost his job to Maxime Crépeau in the beginning of the season, but people forget that he was actually very decent when he was with the Whitecaps early on and with the Rapids, and that there was even a time where his number was actually even better than Tim Howard was when he was with the Rapids. So I think that's a good, decent signing, and that it's clear that RSL are trying to, you know, they want to eventually give their youngster goalkeeper and give Ochoa a chance, but I feel like they think that it's just a too big step to try to transition into USL and be an MLS regular, that they decided to kind of use this almost like a safety net. And that I feel like if Zach McMath does struggle with RSL, don't be surprised if they're going to start to think about bring Ochoa in, and that again, Zach McMath, I think this is just a safety net for RSL, and that once if they realize that he's not that decent, they might start thinking about bringing Ochoa in as the regular starter. FC Cincinnati have acquired veteran Swedish center back Tom Patterson. I feel like this is a move that is not just only to add depth in terms of the defense that FC Cincinnati needs to fix after giving up the most goal out of any team in MLS, but it's also a signing where, in case when Kendall Waston does go into international break, he would be the perfect guy to replace him and pretty much be the guy to be slot in that place when Kendall Waston does go on international duty. And you know, this is a guy that he actually was the captain of Östersund, and I believe he was on the team when Östersund was in the Europa League and famously played against Arsenal in the round of 16 of the Europa League. So this is a guy that definitely have some European kind of competition experience, and a lot of people says that he was a very good defender when he was with Östersund. So I think this is a good signing for FC Cincinnati, and this is just kind of a building block of how they really need to just completely tear it down again and restart from the beginning. Like, they're just going to pretend that, you know, last season was just kind of the, well, we want to get to MLS and kind of experience how it looks, but now we're going to restart again because we know it didn't work, and now we're going to be serious and try to compete in MLS. New England acquired Novik from Sporting KC off free agency, and I know a lot of people was very surprised about this move because Novik, he is a Kansas City guy, and a lot of people thought that he was going to retire with SKC. But the thing is, he was declined his option this offseason by Sporting KC, and it just felt like as the day goes on, SKC was not going to bring him back, and that, you know, when that happens, usually a player like him is going to go to another team. And would you believe that he would be going to the team that basically SKC seems to have a very close relationship with New England? Like, both of these teams seems to just like to trade former player to each other that, I wonder if there's even an agreement with both of these teams that, if you, of course, get one of our player that kind of is a little bit washed up, then we'll trade you another guy that is kind of felt out of favorite, and that's how the deal is going to go. So, yeah, it's going to be interesting to see how he would do when he is going to be in New England. And I remember New England actually drafted Novik way back in 2009 or 2008 in the draft. So for many people that think Novik and how he is kind of a SKC kind of guy, people forget that he didn't start his career at SKC and that he started his career with New England, although he didn't really play very often for New England before going to Kansas City. So, yeah. New England is also rumored to get Polish striker Adam Buksa. I think that's how you pronounce. And, I said in the last News of the Week episode of how Bruce Arena says that they are looking for a DP striker and a defender. And it seemed like this is the DP striker that they are going to get. And it's a very decent DP striker, as I heard that he has scored 28 goals in the 4 season that he is in the Polish league, and I think this would definitely be a decent signing to add some more goal scoring for the Refs. Although, as I said, I feel like they already have a goal scorer in Gustavo Bo, and they also have a good backup in Theo Bunbury. I just feel like maybe instead of thinking about getting another DP striker, maybe they might think about try to get some help in the wing area and in the midfield, where I think that might be the area where New England is kind of a little bit lacking in the attacking end. Luciano Acosta is rumored to join a Western Conference team, and the rumor is that I heard that Western Conference team is going to be Seattle, which would fit perfectly because, Seattle lost Victor Rodriguez this offseason, and I think Luciano Acosta would perfectly fit in that role that Victor Rodriguez played for the Sounders. But again, this is just kind of a rumor that he is going to go to a Western Conference team, and that I also have heard that he was potentially going to be sold off to Europe by DC United this winter. So we don't know whether or not if he's going to stay in MLS or going to go to Europe. Probably he's not going to be staying with DC United, especially with the fact that DC decided to not exercise his contract option. They decided to let his contract expire, and now he basically is kind of like a free agent, and it's going to be interesting to see which Western Conference team is going to pick him up, or is there going to be a European team that's going to pick him up. Inter Miami says that they will name a head coach before January 1st. It's not really January 1st that they are going to announce it, but they're going to announce before January 1st. And I probably should have also put before with a quotation mark because, with Inter Miami, every time when they are rumored with something, you just have to take it with a bit of a grain of salt because you don't know exactly if that is going to be the case. And that is this just another one of those announcements where they say, well, we're going to do this, but in a couple of weeks we're going to say otherwise. I mean, I remember Inter Miami, they were very close to trying to get River Plate manager, and I forgot what is exactly the name of the manager, but then a couple of days later that River Plate manager just saying, no, I'm not going to MLS and I'm not going to coach Inter Miami, I'm going to stay at River Plate. So yeah, it's going to be interesting, and it's to be determine whether or not if Miami are really going to finally name their head coach before the new year. NYCFC is going to be playing at Citi Field at least 4 times. Well, not at least, but 4 times this season. Well, actually, technically, at least 4 times is somewhat factual because, they might be playing at Citi Field for their CONCACAF Champions League game, which they still haven't announced whether or not if they're going to be playing their CCL game at Yankee Stadium or they're going to be playing at another venue. But I guess the reason why NYCFC want to play at Citi Field is because they feel like they're going to have a similar situation to last season, where the reason why they can't play games at Yankees Stadium in the playoffs is because the team that is named after that stadium had to have a playoff game to play there, and obviously they get the priority because they own that stadium. So that's why NYCFC was banished to Citi Field, and that I feel like NYCFC feel like they're going to have that similar situation if they make the playoffs again, especially the fact that the Yankees are going to be a team that most likely is going to make the playoffs again heading into next season. So they just want to get some familiarity so that when they do get to the playoffs, they don't just feel like they're playing on the road or playing in a neutral site that they have never played before. I mean, I don't know if that kind of played a little bit into NYCFC when they lost to TFC in the playoffs, where they were playing a stadium that, you know, they have played before, but it's a stadium that they don't usually play very often, and that they kind of got caught out of that. And keep in mind, Citi Field dimension is a little bit different than Yankee Stadium dimension, although one thing for sure with both of these stadium is that it's still going to be at a baseball stadium, and it's just basically a soccer kind of dimension on a baseball field. And I'm not even going to get to the fact that I'm going to once again talk about why NYCFC need to eventually figure out their stadium issue, because I mentioned a lot of time, and fans are bringing that up every single time. So if you want to hear them continue to complain NYCFC don't have a stadium, just go to the league Reddit post, and they will basically just have tons of complaint about why NYCFC is not gonna like, they complain that NYCFC is playing a baseball stadium, or fans are just trolling NYCFC to once again play at a baseball stadium. Reading United decided to withdraw from the US Open Cup because of lack of players on the roster in the beginning of the first round game. And, you know, I know this is kind of not really related to MLS, but this is something that is a bit of a problem heading into this upcoming US Open Cup campaign, where the first round is going to be happening on the weekend of March 20th to the 22nd, and the first round is where most of these NPSL and USL League 2 team enter and start to play either these local qualifier team or play against each other. And one thing USL League 2 team, and I think some NPSL team also do this, is that they have a lot of players that are college player. Because after all, USL League 2 used to call the PDL, which is the Professional Development League, and that is basically the league that is kind of a league where these players are currently playing in college. Once they, of course, done with their college team, they decide to play them during the summer so that they can, of course, get that experience before they potentially either join an MLS team or go to Europe. And because of the fact that the US Open Cup is happening in March, and because most of these college players doesn't get released from their school and aren't able to join these USL League 2 or NPSL team until May, that's why this creates a bit of a problem. And Reading United is not the only one that is thinking about withdrawing from the competition. There is a ton of USL League 2 team that really heavily rely on college soccer players are thinking about withdrawing too, because they just simply don't have enough players. I mean, when you don't have enough players to play a US Open Cup game, and you gotta have to rely on just kind of like a tryout and rely on players that is off the street, that is definitely not going to get you very far into the competition. So I think that's something that I think US soccer need to look at. And as I mentioned before, the fact that, you know, this new format that US soccer has come up with, the US Open Cup, there's definitely some things that I like, and there's definitely something that is going to have to fix. And I think one of the things that they're going to have to fix is the scheduling, and that they can't put US Open Cup game in March, especially with these lower tier teams usually don't even have their roster by March. And that is really the reason why a lot of these teams play in May instead of March, because most of these college players will not be available into the roster until May. And finally, there is a rumor that the MLS schedule is going to be released as soon as Thursday, and that is the full schedule that I'm talking about. So, you know, I think somebody tweeted out on Twitter that MLS is going to finalize making all this schedule for every single team, and that eventually they're going to release on Thursday. And this is definitely a month earlier than previous seasons, where previous season the schedule usually released in early January. Although I remember there was one year a couple of seasons ago that they actually released the schedule before the MLS season ends, which was kind of a little bit bizarre. But I guess the reason why they decided to release now is because the season, it did end a month earlier than the previous seasons that we had in MLS, and since they probably need like only a month and a half to create the schedule for these MLS team from the final game of MLS, that's where we're basically getting to that point where it's now a month and a half ever since the last game of MLS, and that this is usually the time when the schedule does release. But yeah, I hope that, of course, is going to be the case, because if it's going to be the case, I will know exactly when and what time the Quakes are going to be playing for the remaining of the season, and hope that there's going to be, I can try to attend every single Quakes game, even though I feel like I'm going to at least miss 1 or 2 games this season. Last season, I think I missed 3 or 4 Quakes game last year, which is more than I have missed Quakes game in the last couple of years. But hopefully the schedule this time, when I look at the Quakes schedule, it will fit perfectly for me, and I can also start making some plan for road trip and some plan of different MLS stadium or even away day when I see the Quakes play on the road once the schedule does release. And I'll make sure I'll make a video about the possible road trip or the possible kind of travel that I am going to go, and possible team that I am going to be watch once I finish making my travel plans once the schedule release. But either way, guys, hope you guys enjoy this video. If you do, make sure you guys leave a like, smash that subscribe button. Let me know in the comments below, what do you think of these news? And as always, if you have any news that wasn't mentioned on here but you want to talk about, let me know in the comments below. But yeah, hope you guys enjoyed this video, and I will see you guys next time.